Hello, my name is Mike Trung with the Center for Research on Teaching Excellence at UC Merced, and you are listening to a Teaching and Technology Series webinar about UCM crops. Before we begin, I have a brief orientation to the web conferencing tool that we're using today called Adobe Connect Pro. Your browser right now is showing the title slide for today's webinar. Audio is set to mute. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a list of the agenda and some of the housekeeping items. And on the right, you see a chat window where you can use to put your questions or comments for me. If you encounter any kind of technical problems, please send the message to me directly as opposed to everyone. And if you miss part of today's webinar, or if you want to see some or all of it again, all Teaching and Technology live webinars are archived on the CRT website. Please feel free to come back as often as you like. And now let me get to today's presentation, UCM Crops webinar featuring assessment tools. So what is assessment? I want to sort of give you a bigger picture to begin with. Assessment is essentially a collection of measurable data indicating student learning and engagement. And oftentimes, assessment comes in two primary types. There's what you call the formative assessment, which is often used for ongoing improvement. For example, if you can think of weekly quizzes that you may administer in your class where you're just trying to get a gauge of your students' understanding of the material, or you're getting feedback from your students about how the lecture is going, things that are just ongoing, and you're using the data that you're collecting as a way to inform your teaching, and that's what they call a formative assessment. Another kind of assessment that is often done is the summative assessment, and summative assessments are oftentimes focused on final evaluation. If you can think of final exams as one summative assessment where when a student takes it and he or she gets the score, that's it. They don't have an opportunity really to make improvements on that. However, there are oftentimes summative assessments that can be used for formative purposes. For example, a midterm can be considered a summative assessment in the sense that they get a grade for that, but that grade also can help the student make adjustments that's necessary so that they can do better on their final exam if they didn't do well in their midterm. So those are sort of the big kinds of assessments that are generally done. And the last question here is, what is the goal of assessment? Ultimately, the goal is to improve student learning, which will hopefully be done through improved teaching. As an instructor, the more information and feedback you get back from your students, hopefully the more informed you are about the materials that you're teaching, about the way you're engaging your students, about the difficulty of the material. All the information that you're gathering will enable you to be able to customize your classes in a way that will hopefully improve student engagement and student learning. So that's sort of ultimately what the goal is. Let me focus today on three particular tools within UCM Crops. The first tool is the polls tool, and essentially the polls tool allows you for quick, easy, and anonymous polling of users. And I'll show you how quickly and easily that can be done. There's another tool called the test and surveys, and for this particular tool, many instructors use it for quizzes and also just short answers or reading fill-in-the-blank kinds of questions. The nice feature about this particular tool is it's an automatic grading and feedback feature that allows, as an instructor, where when you set it up, you can actually put all the correct answer in it, and it will automatically grade it for you and then allow for feedback as well. So it's a very nice feature to use. And then finally, the last tool that I'm going to show you is the evaluation system. It's really meant for sort of administrative use. such as course evaluations, but it can be used for other purposes. I'll show you that within the center, we use the evaluation tool as a way to administer workshop assessments for the things that we do through our workshops. We kind of get feedback, and after a workshop we usually send out the evaluation to the participants, and then they would give us feedback. And so it allows you for scheduled releases and automatic reporting, so there are some features within that as well. So let me go ahead and switch. Oh, one more thing before I go on. So I'm just going to quickly kind of cover each of these tools, give you an overview of how they work, and then you will have a chance to sort of explore this on your own time in your own site. But I just want to make sure I give you an overview so that if you have any questions, you're welcome to pose that in the chat window as we go, or you can put it at the end. So let me now switch over to my screen so that you can see what I'm doing. So let me Alright, so here is my crops instance, and I want to show you that I am currently using on the tools set, and you can see it's a very simple interface. It just has really two options. One is to add a new poll, and the other is where you adjust the permission. Let me just show you the permission screen real quick here. This allows you to kind of customize who can vote and who can add a poll and who can delete and edit poll. So you can enable your students actually to add a poll so that if they want to, they can poll their peers in the course to get a sense of how things are going, or just to ask questions that may be relevant to the class. So just something to consider. So I have here two polls I've created. I will just show you really quickly what they look like once it's created, and then I will then go backward and show you how to create one of these. So first question I have is simply vote. Please choose from the list below. Please choose two colors that is your favorite, and so you can just quickly check one or two, and then when you vote, what this will do is give you the person the receipt, and then they can go back, and then here you can see the results are going to be tallied on. It's going to be ongoing, so you can see there are 2 votes currently, and as the votes keep tallying, the report will keep updating, and when the closing date here is reached, the poll will then close and no more voting is allowed. One thing to point out about this polling tool is that it's anonymous, so students don't have to worry about identification of who said what, and so it's just a very easy, simple, quick tool to. And then just to show you another example, so here's a question about how was yesterday's lecture, and you can just get a quick gauge of how your students see the lecture, whether or not they're getting it or not. And so, for example, if they found it very clear and engaging, that's something they can vote for, and then you click on that, again, it gives a results page, and you can see the voting as it goes along. And just something else to consider about this tool is that it's really meant for it's not a summative tool at all. It's really meant to really give you ongoing kind of feedback, and so you can quickly just create a poll and allow you to get feedback throughout the semester, so that you can just get some sense of how the class is going. So let me go through the process of creating a poll and show you how easy it is. So the first page you'll see is just where you ask the question. So I can say, how was the readings for last week? So here's my question. I can set an opening and a closing date and time, and you can allow for the minimum number of answers and the maximum number of answers, and then the results in terms of how it's viewed. I typically just allow it to be viewed all the time, so that students can kind of get a sense of as they take the poll, they can get up to the moment results as well. So I'm going to click Save and add the options. Answer options essentially are the choices that you are including in the poll. So for example, if the question is, how was the reading last week? The first possible answer could be very interesting. And then if you want to add more, just click on Save and add other options. And my second option is interesting, but a bit confusing. And then I'm going to add a third option here. Didn't really get main idea. And then whenever you're done with your last option, just click Save, and what that will do is essentially publish that. You can see here are your options, and then you just click Save, and that will automatically publish your poll. And there it is. And then when now students are ready to come into the polling tool and then start taking this survey. The downside to this tool is that it doesn't really have any kind of notification feature. So unless you tell your students about the poll that has been created, they won't know. There's no email that's sent out or anything like that. So that's sort of the downside. So you can see here's my quiz, my assessment survey I just created. So it's very easy. So I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat window, and then I will try to address it along the way. All right, let me now go to the other tool, which is the test and survey tool right there. This test and survey tool allows for a little bit more sophistication in terms of the types of questions you can ask, and also some of the settings. For example, you can see here when I go to the question pool, you can actually create pools of questions that you are using for. It could be for a particular part of your class. It could be around a chapter. It could be around an assignment. So it can be really any kind of, you can organize your question pool any way you want. But the nice thing about this, once you have the questions created in the question pool, it will always be there. You can use this every semester, and it will be with you. And so, so this is a nice persistent feature that you'll have for this particular tool. So let me kind of go in really quick to a to one of these. Let me see here, to the assessments I've created, and I can show you how the question types and things like that work. So here is a simple assessment that I've created, and you can see there are two questions here. The first question is, I'm sorry, 3 questions. The first question is, it's right there. How many campuses are in the University of California system? And here are my options. So you can see it's a multiple choice question, and it's assigned 1 point. The second question is a true/false. It's also worth 1 point. And then the third is a short answer question, and it's also worth 1 point. So you can see there are different types of questions you can ask, unlike the polling tool where it's essentially multiple choice and that's about it. Here you can really play with different kinds of question type. This drop-down menu here allows you to see other question types that are available. You can do surveys. Essentially what that is it's like a Likert scale that you can create. The fill in the blank is something that you can sort of have a quiz on. So if you're trying to test your students on certain concepts, a word vocabulary, you can use this particular question type and do the fill in the blank. And then the numeric responses could be used for a lot of math quizzes where you set up an equation and you allow for students to answer a particular question, a math question, and that it has to be in just a number form. You can do matching, and then the audio recording feature doesn't work. I just tried it recently and it's not configured, so it's currently not usable. And then file upload is essentially if you're asking for students to upload something like a document or something, then that's what you'll choose. And then the copy from the question pool is that the pool that question pool I just showed you earlier, where if you created before the question before and it's banked in your pool, then you can always draw from that in the future. So, so let me show you really quick what it looks like. So this is how it would appear to the student. And unlike the polling tool, this does have a notification feature where when you set it up, you can allow it to send out an email to your students, so that notifying them that it is available and ready for them to take. So, and this is what they'll see when they click on that link. You know, when they click on begin assessment, they'll see the question that's part of this, and they can see the point value, and here's the short answer. So, and then once they, let me show you real quick here what it will look like. They can save it, which basically allows them to come back to this until essentially the deadline of the quiz, or they can submit for grading, which essentially formally submits this quiz and they can no longer go back and change. So I'm going to go ahead and submit for grading. And what this will do is it will essentially tell the student that, you know, you've submitted this, and it will generate a receipt. But because I'm an instructor, this doesn't really give me that full view. But in a case where a student's actually doing this, they will say it's been submitted, and it'll generate a receipt for them. So, so that's how it looks like from sort of the student perspective. Let me show you how to really quickly create a assessment. So first, we go to the assessment type. Assessment type is essentially, think of it as a template. There are different types of assessment that are already preloaded on here. You have sort of your formative assessment, you have your lab safety. If you don't, you can go through and look for assessment type that is as close to what you want and see if it works. And if it works, then you can just modify it. If you don't find anything that really fits your needs, then you can always create a new one. So I'm just going to create a new assessment, assessment type 5, for example. And then when I do that, what it will do is bring me to sort of this template where I'm building the survey, the test in the survey. So essentially, I'm going to add whatever kind of question I want to do. So the first one is multiple choice, let's say. And when I click on multiple choice, what this will do is it will give me this screen where I can essentially assign it a value. I can indicate whether it's a single correct answer, a multiple correct answer, or multiple selection, and all sorts of variations there. Here's the question type. What is UCM's mascot? And then below here is my answer options. I'm going to put Bobcat. I'm going to do Cougar, lion, and a cat. And on the left-hand column here is where you can check which is the correct answer. Again, this test and survey tool has an automatic correcting and feedback feature. So if you indicate the right answer, what the computer will do is once an answer has been submitted, it will automatically match it against what this correct answer is. And if it's correct, then it'll assign the student 1 point. If it doesn't, then it doesn't give them the point. So it's an automatic grading functionality. And then on the bottom here is where you can provide feedback. So if a student got the answer correct, this is where you would put the feedback for them. So I usually recommend the best way to do the feedback, answer feedback, is just to have the same response for both the correct answer and the incorrect answer, so that the students are getting either reinforcement of the correct answer or they get the answer to the question they missed. So UC Merced's mascot is the Bobcat. And so I usually just have the same feedback for both the correct and incorrect answer, and I'm going to click Save. And what you'll see here now is that I have one question for this particular assessment session. And so you can keep going. You can do another one. For example, let's do a true and false question. And again, you go through that process of assigning the point value. And you can also give a negative point if they select a wrong answer as well. Is UC Merced located in the Central Valley? And you can indicate what the answer is. And here, if you want, you can actually ask for a rationale. And what this does is allows students to kind of give a little comment about why they selected the answer that they did. And then again, the bottom part here allows you to provide feedback. So UCM is located in the Central Valley. And then again, I think as best practice just to have the same feedback for both correct and incorrect answer. And then I'm going to click Save here. And you can see here I have 2 questions set up. And so you can just essentially keep doing this until you finish with the number of questions you have. And when you're done, you need to publish it. And what publishing does is it gives you some options of how to all these different, I'm going to open all these so I can show you what they entail. You can title it however way you want. You can provide a description if you want. You can add an attachment sort of with longer instructions or whatever you may have. Delivery date in terms of when it's available, when it's due. The assessment release to is where you essentially tell USAM CROPS like which group to assign this particular test and survey to. This is, since I'm in the test course site, this would be everybody who's in my site will have access to this. The mark for review essentially allows for a student, as they take their quiz and they're not sure, what they do is they can check that, and what that will enable them to do is then go back to those before they submit it, so that it just kind of get like a little bookmark for them to go back to remember, okay, this question I'm not quite sure, but I don't want to keep spending more time on it, so I'm going to keep going in my quiz, and before I submit it, I'm going to go back to these questions that I want to make sure I get a second look at. Submission handling allows you for the different options here if you want to allow late submissions or not, or essentially, when the idea is that you can control when a survey is accepted and whether or not you allow for tardy submissions. And then if you want to redirect them to a particular URL page after that, you can add that here. And the feedback is where you can indicate at what level of feedback you want. For example, do you want the feedback to be immediate the moment they take that quiz, to be immediate per question, sort of at the question level, or do you want it at the section level, is where if you have multiple sections, if you create a quiz that has multiple sections, at the end of each section, the feedback will be provided. And then in terms of the delivery, again, it's immediate. Is it feedback upon submission? So once they formally submitted for grading, that's when they'll see the feedback, or they don't get feedback at all, or they get feedback after a certain date. So there are a lot of granularity in terms of when the feedback delivery happens. And then in terms of the grading, you can choose to have the student's identity hidden while you're grading, so that it may not bias your grading. The student's identity really only comes into play when you have open-ended answers, or answers that actually require you or your TA to be able to have to grade. Most multiple choice grading, you don't need to worry about this because it automatically grades anyway. And then here's where you can send the quiz the assessment to the gradebook, and if you just click that, what this will do is create a direct through line to the gradebook, enabling whatever results you get from this particular assessment and it'll be logged on as a line item for your gradebook. And then the last option here is allows, if you allow for multiple submission, like let's say students can keep taking the quiz until the deadline, you can indicate whether or not you want the highest score or you want the last score. So it's going to keep everything as is, and then I'm going to go ahead and save settings and publish. And here's where you can, the notification I was telling you about, you can send a notification to your students, which will send them an email, or you can not. So I'm not going to go ahead not send any notification because I don't want to disturb my users on this side. So here you can see it's currently under the publish assessment, and it is active in progress. So essentially that is it for this test and surveys tool. My remaining time will be spent on the evaluation system tool, which is located right there on the bottom left of your menu. As you can see here, I have a lot of evaluation on my dashboard. This tool is definitely a lot more extensive and sophisticated than the previous tools I showed you. And this particular tool here really is meant for course evaluations around this time of year when there's midterm grades. This is a really great opportunity if you don't administer any formal evaluations in your course. Let's say if you're teaching upward vision course, this is where you can use this tool to kind of get some formative feedback from your students, just to get a pulse on how things are going in the class and to see if you need to make any adjustments for the remaining part of the class. So you can see I have here all the evaluations that I'm administering. So let me just show you really quick what it looks like first, and then I'll go through a quick overview of how to set it up. So this is what it looks like once it's created. You have the basic kind of options in terms of question types. You have multiple choice, you have a Likert scale, you have open-ended kind of short answer types of questions, and you can have as many as you want. And it's a little bit nicer looking in terms of user interface than the test and survey. And so and this also has the same kinds of control as you do with the test and survey in terms of the setup and so on. Let me go back to the dashboard here. It does tend to load a little bit slow, I've noticed, especially if you have a lot of tests and if you have a lot of assessments that are on your site. And that's something, I think, a bug that isn't addressed at this point yet with CROPS, because I've been using this particular tool for many years now. I have accumulated at least over 50 to 100 assessments on the evaluation system. And so what I think it's doing is every time I go to my dashboard, it's trying to load all the different assessments I've created in the past, and that's why it's taking a long time. So I may not be able to sort of show you the actual creation process because of the time it takes to load. But let me go through some of the options on top. So the idea here is you create the items, which is the question. So here is where you have the questions that you want to add to your survey. It has the same kind of question pool organization that the last tool I covered. And as you create these items or questions, it will always be available for you to choose from every time you create a new evaluation. So it's something that it's sort of banked and you always have access to it. The templates, so first you create the items and then you create the templates. And the templates essentially are sort of ways to kind of wrap around the question. So for example, you can have the same questions, but it's around different things. For example, you can you're asking for student engagement about the lecture, and that could be one template. You can use the same questions about how they're engaged or not in your lecture class, but you can have that same set of questions, but it's around the discussion section as well. So but you don't want to sort of combine those two together. And so what you'll do is create two templates, one for your course lecture and one for your discussion section, even though they're asking essentially the same question. So I hope that makes sense in terms of templates. And the evaluation is really the last step. So you create your questions, then you create your templates, and within the templates is where you would sort of load the items. And then once you're done with the template, in the evaluation section is where you actually create the evaluation. So here I have 3 that I've created, and it allows you to, let me show you really quick here. Well, I'll probably easier to show you one that I've already created and show you the options that are available for the settings. So here's the title, here's the description of what it is, the open start date and the due date. The evaluation results is where you can, if most of the time this is used for course evaluations, and then if there's an administrator in your program that's administering this, they can control when the results are available for viewing. So let's say the final course evaluations are due on Friday, but the grades are not submitted until Monday the following week. What you want to do is limit your instructor from being able to view their results until after they submitted their grades. So you can put the day of when the results can be viewed later from the close of the evaluation. Here is where you can also choose the authentication. You can have it anonymous, or you can have it identified. And if you're using this for a course site, it's probably better to have an identification, because that will then make sure that only one person submits one evaluation, whereas in an anonymous situation, you can have the same person submitting multiple evaluations. I set it to anonymous because it bypasses the login, the single sign-on page. Students don't have to sign on to CROMPS to take this evaluation, this particular evaluation. And for us, because we're using it for a workshop, it's not necessary that we need to identify who took the evaluation. And then finally, this is where you have the notification if there's any questions that will get sent to here. So those are sort of some of the features. I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to have to wrap up really quickly. So let me switch back to my slide deck. And essentially, I guess there are no questions at this point. So I've breezed through all 3 tools really quickly, and I'm sure some of you probably will have, if you watch this during the as a recorded session, you probably have some questions. So please feel free to contact me. My contact information is on the left-hand side here. You can just shoot me an email, and I will be more than happy to meet with you. I just want to tell you really quickly, we have one more webinar left for this particular series. That's in April. It's going to be featuring the gradebook tool. This is to help you get ready for your final grades and setting up your gradebook so that you can get ready for that. And then if you need more help with CROPS, there's a resource resource page that I've created on the UCM crt.ucmerced site, and you can just look up UCM CROPS and you can find the resources there. If you have particular questions about features or tools or what's available on UCM CROPS, you can always go directly to the UCM CROPS help link located there. And again, here's my contact information. And that's essentially it. So thank you again for attending today's webinar series. Let me, before I finish, push out a survey so that you can that allows you to just give me a sense of how today's session went, and if I would really appreciate just feedback that you may have. So I just pushed that out to you, so you should be able to see that on your browser. And when I end this session as well, the browser tab that I just pushed out should remain, so you're welcome to submit that at your own time. And again, thank you again for attending today's webinar, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.